Or horses or cars?
I like cars the best, easier. Horses are hard work, and you can get hurt more so than in cars.
How so?
On a horse, a horse still has a mind of its own to some extent, and falling from a horse is a thumper, because you're falling on hard ground. And a car, you've got a car around you, you're pretty much protected. You have seat belts, and you are in control of the car. You're never 100% sure you're ever in control of a horse.
So the movie business has changed a lot. Could you give any advice to somebody who wants to get into stunts now, that like basic advice on how to, if somebody wanted to get into the stunt business now, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to latch on to a stunt coordinator or a stuntman who is prominent in the business, and to be an apprentice to that person. And there's no stunt school that I know of, and that would be the only way to learn. And that person that taught you could also hire you, because they would be a stunt coordinator or a prominent enough stunt person that they could recommend you to somebody. But that's, plus having a background in stunt work, or things related to stunt work, like being a good motorcycle guy, or
an athlete, like you were saying.
or
you
a
were
good
an
boxer,
athlete.
a good wrestler, or something, good martial arts guy. Having a background is good. A lot of people come in the business maybe just as a fencer, but if you're just a fencer, you're not going to make a living. If you're just martial arts, it's going to be tough to make a living. You have to learn to do a little bit of everything. And I think that's why my career was fairly successful, was because I could do a lot of different things. I wasn't the greatest at anything, but I could do a little bit of everything.
How has stunt work changed technically through the years?
Well, it's a lot more technical. In the old days, we did everything the hard way. If you turned a car over, you went up a wood ramp. Now we have a pipe ramp, which literally, with a kicker at the end, which literally flips a car over. It's very easy to turn a car over with a pipe ramp. And there are other things that are more technical, with wires and trips and descenders and things that we didn't have in those days. So in some ways, way back was easier, in some ways it was more difficult.
What were some of your most challenging stunts in movies?
A Western called The Unforgiven with Audrey Hepburn and Burt Lancaster. I was doubling John Saxon, and I had to ride down Joe Wiseman, who stole Audrey Hepburn's horse. So the story point was that I would ride a horse bareback, being that John Saxon was part Indian, ride a horse bareback, lead three head, also be bareback, and chase Joe Wiseman. And in order to tire out Joe Wiseman's horse, I had 4 horses to tire him out with. So when the horse I was riding got tired, I transferred to the next horse. And when he got tired, I jumped to the next one. And this is at full gallop. And then finally I jumped to the last one and eventually caught Joe Wiseman. And that was the most difficult thing I ever did. Luckily, I had my fallen horse, who was a big thoroughbred. And I either rode him and went to the other horses, or I was on another horse and went to him. So I just kept moving him around. Nobody ever noticed the difference.
How many takes to get that stunt?
Quite a few takes, because a lot of times when I jumped to the back of the bareback horse to make my move, they either pulled back or went forward, and I usually would hit the ground. And then I would have to get up and we start all over again. And eventually I got all of the horses, but I missed all because the horses were not always cooperative. The minute I jumped to the back of this horse and went, the horse had to beat it. If he wasn't there, I was already committed. So I hit the ground a lot. That's why I say it's difficult, because I physically was able to finish.
Any other more difficult movies?
Oh, the Mad World on the Fire Escape, that was pretty scary. We were up about 70 feet and we were hanging from this fire escape. And then we were all stunt guys. We were all doubled for the actors. I was doubling Peter Falk. And it was a little scary because the whole thing was kind of shaky.
And you did some car stunts in that movie too?
Yes, yeah, we did some car chases. And I was doubling Peter Falk, so wherever he was, I was. A convoy, yes. I was supposed to run off the road by a big truck driven by Chris Christopherson. And I was doubling Ernest Borgnine. And I was supposed to go through a billboard about 15 feet away in the air and another 50 feet to a barn. I was supposed to land in the barn on hay bales and come out the other side. But they cued me late, so when I caught up to the truck to force me off the road, I was doing about 80 miles an hour and I had nowhere to go, so I just took off. And I went about 160 feet through the air, and it was a thumper. And I separated all my ribs on one side, my sternum from my collarbone, and I had a concussion. But I stayed and worked on the picture. Back then they didn't know about concussions, or didn't care. I don't know.
Was that a world's record of a jump
Yes,
at the time?
still is.
Oh, so nobody's beat that record yet?
They've had some remote cars go farther than that, but no one to my knowledge has. In fact, I think it was 165 feet that I went through the air. And no one's bettered that. The reason I know it was that far because we had a scientist there from NASA, and he figured it out. That's how far I went.